Today we're continuing to read The Brothers Karamazov, Chapter 3, Peasant Women Who Have Faith. Near the wooden portico below, built on to the outer wall of the precinct, there was a crowd of about 20 peasant women. They had been told that the elder was at the last coming out, and they had gathered together in anticipation. Two ladies, Madame Holikov and her daughter, had also come out into the portico to wait for the elder, but in a separate part of it, set aside for women of rank. Madame Holikov was a wealthy lady, still young and attractive, and always dressed with taste. She was rather pale and had lively black eyes. She was not more than 33, and had been 5 years a widow. Her daughter, a girl of 14, was partially paralyzed. The poor child had not been able to walk for the last 6 months, and was wheeled about in a long reclining chair. She had a charming little face, rather thin from illness, but full of gaiety. There was a gleam of mischief in her big dark eyes with their long lashes. Her mother had been intending to take her abroad ever since the spring, but they had been detained all the summer by business connected with their estate. They had been staying a week in our town, where they had come more for purposes of business than devotion, but had visited Father Zosima once already, 3 days before. Though they knew that the elder scarcely saw anyone, they had now suddenly turned up again, and urgently entreated the happiness of looking once again on the great healer. The mother was sitting on a chair by the side of her daughter's invalid carriage, and 2 paces from her stood an old monk, not one of our monastery, but a visitor from an obscure religious house in the far north. He too sought the elder's blessing. But Father Zosima, on entering the portico, went first straight to the peasants who were crowded at the foot of the 3 steps that led up into the portico. Father Zosima stood on the top step, put on his stole, and began blessing the women who thronged about him. One crazy woman was led up to him. As soon as she caught sight of the elder, she began shrieking and writhing, as though in the pains of childbirth. Laying the stole on her forehead, he read a short prayer over her, and she was at once soothed and quieted. I do not know how it may be now, but in my childhood, I often happened to see and hear these possessed women in the villages and monasteries. They used to be brought to Mass. They would squeal and bark like a dog, so that they were heard all over the church. But when the sacrament was carried in, and they were led up to it, at once the possession ceased, and the sick women were always soothed for a time. I was greatly impressed and amazed at this as a child. But then I heard from country neighbors and from my town teachers that the whole illness was simulated to avoid work, and that it could always be cured by suitable severity. Various anecdotes were told to confirm this. But later on I learnt with astonishment from medical specialists that there is no pretense about it, that it is a terrible illness to which women are subject, especially prevalent among us in Russia, and that it is due to the hard lot of the peasant women. It is a disease, I was told, arising from exhausting toil too soon after hard, abnormal and unassisted labor in childbirth, and from the hopeless misery, from beatings and so on, which some women were not able to endure like others. The strange and instant healing of the frantic and struggling woman as soon as she was led up to the Holy Sacrament, which had been explained to me as due to malingering and the trickery of the clericals, arose probably in the most natural manner. Both the women who supported her and the invalid herself fully believed as a truth, beyond question, that the evil spirit in possession of her could not hold out if the sick women were brought to the sacrament and made to bow down before it. And so with the nervous and psychically deranged women, a sort of convulsion of the whole organism always took place, and was bound to take place at the moment of bowing down to the sacrament, aroused by the expectation of the miracle of healing and the implicit belief that it would come to pass. And it did come to pass, though only for a moment. It was exactly the same now, as soon as the elder touched the sick woman with the stole. And that's the end of the reading for today. Have a good day.